Good day, I am Josephine Ginto from BS Ed student and I will be discussing about the major function of the special senses. Now let's begin by defining first what is the senses. So a sense is a physiological capacity of organism that provides data for perception. So the senses under operation, classification, and theory are overlapping topics studied by a variety of fields, and most notably is neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and the philosophy of perception. And the nervous system and a sense organ are dedicated to each sense. And the human body also have two basic types of senses, the special senses and general senses. Special senses have specialized sense organs that gather sensory information and change it into nerve impulse. And special senses include the vision, hearing, balance, taste, and smell. General senses, in contrast, are all associated with the sense of touch and they lack special sense organs. Instead, sensory information about touch is gathered by the skin and other body tissues. So whether these senses are special or general, however, they all depend on cells called the sensory receptors. A sensory receptor is a specialized nerve cells that responds to stimulus in the internal or external environment by generating a nerve impulse. So the nerve impulse then travels along the sensory nerve to the central nervous system for processing and to form a response. And there are several different types of sensory receptors that respond to different kinds of stimuli. First, the mechanoreceptors responds to mechanical forces such as pressure, roughness, vibration, and stretching. And most mechanoreceptors are found in the skin and are needed for the sense of touch and are also found in the inner ear where they are needed for the senses of hearing and balance. Second is the thermoreceptors responds to variation in temperature and they are found mostly in the skin and detect temperatures that are above or below body temperature. And the third is the nociceptors, responds to potentially damaging stimuli, which are generally perceived as pain, and they are found in the internal organs as well as on the surface of the body. And different nociceptors are activated depending on the particular stimulus. And some detect damaging heat or cold, others detect excessive pressure, and still others detect painful chemicals such as very hot spicy food. And then the fourth is the photoreceptors, detect and response to light. And most photoreceptors are found in the eye and are needed for the sense of vision. And the last is the chemoreceptors response to certain chemicals and they are found mainly in taste buds on the tongue where they are needed for the sense of taste and in nasal passages where they are needed for the sense of smell. Now let's move to the human special sense. We have the first the vision or sight. Vision is the ability to sense light and see, and the eye is the special sensory organ that collects and focuses light and forms images. So how the eye works? So the eye gathers and focuses light to form an image and then changes the image to nerve impulses that travel to the brain. So here are the steps. So first, light passes first through the cornea, which is clear outer layer that protects the eye and helps to focus the light by refracting or bending it. And the second step is the light enters the interior of the eye through the opening called the pupil. And the size of this opening is controlled by the colored part of the eye called the iris, which is adjust the size based on the brightness of the light. And this iris causes the pupil to narrow in bright light and widen in dim light. And the third step is the light then passes through the lens, which refracts the light even more and focuses in on the retina at the back of the eye as an inverted image. And the fourth step is the retina contains two types of photoreceptor cells, the rods and cones. The rods are found mainly in all areas of the retina other than the barycenter and particularly sensitive to low levels of light. And the cones are found mainly in the center of the retina and sensitive to light of different colors and allow color vision. So the rods and cones convert the light that strike them to nerve impulses. And the fifth and last step is the nerve impulses from the rods and cones travel to the optic nerve via the optic disc, which is a circular area at the back of the eye where the optic nerve connects to the retina. So the our brain also have the role of role on the vision. So the role of the brain in vision, the optic nerves from the both eyes meet and cross just below the bottom of the hypothalamus in the brain. And the information from the both eyes is sent to the visual cortex in the occipital lobe of the cerebrum, which is the part of the cerebral cortex. And the visual cortex is the largest system in the human brain, and it is responsible for processing visual images. So it is interprets messages from both eyes and tell us what we are saying or what we are seeing. The second senses is the touch. Touch is the ability to sense pressure, vibration, temperature, pain, and other tactile stimuli. So these types of stimuli are detected by mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors, and nociceptors all over the body and most noticeably in the skin. So these receptors are especially concentrated on the tongue, lips, face, palms of the hands, and soles of the feet. So the various types of tactile receptors in the skin are shown in the diagram below. So next is the hearing or the audioception. So hearing is the ability to sense sound waves and the ear is the organ that senses sound. So the sound wave enter the ear through the ear canal and travel to the eardrum. So the sound waves strike the eardrum and make it vibrate. So the vibration then travel through the three tiny bones, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup of the middle of the ear, which amplify the vibration. So from the middle ear, the vibration pass to the cochlea in the inner ear, and this cochlea is a coiled tube filled with liquid, and the liquid moves in response to the vibration, causing tiny hair cells lining the cochlea to bend. So in response, the hair cells send nerve impulses to the auditory nerve, which carries the impulses to the brain, and the brain interprets the impulses and tells us what we are hearing. So the ears are also responsible for the sense of balance. So the balance is the ability to sense and maintain an appropriate body position. So the semicircular canals inside the ear contain fluid that moves head when the head changes position. So the tiny hairs lining the semicircular canals sense movement of the fluid. So in response, they send nerve impulses to the vestibular nerve, which carries the impulses to the brain, and the brain interprets the impulses and sends messages to the peripheral nervous system, which triggers contractions of the skeletal muscles as needed to maintain balance. And the last is the taste and smell. So the taste and smells are both abilities to sense chemical, taste and olfactory or the odor receptors are chemoreceptors. So in the taste, tongue is the sense special organ and the nose is the sense organ of the smell. And both types of chemoreceptors and send nerve impulses to the brain along sensory nerves, and the brain tells us what we are tasting or smelling. So taste receptors are found in tiny bumps of the tongue called the taste buds. So as you can see in the diagram of a taste receptor cells and related structures in the diagram, taste receptor cells make a contact with chemicals in food through tiny openings called the taste pores. And when certain chemicals bind with taste receptor cells, it generates nerve impulses that travel through apparent nerves to the CNH. So there are separate taste receptors for sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and meaty taste. Meaty taste. The meaty taste or savory taste is called the umami. So that's all, and thank you for watching and listening.